Good evening and welcome to the council meeting of June 24th, 2024. The meeting is being live streamed on Town of Kentville YouTube channel, and the most up-to-date meeting package is on the Town of Kentville website. We are experiencing some technical difficulties, so our screens within the chamber will not be live. However, when we do a vote, each member of council will vote as per normal using their electronic device, and then I will query each one of them. The clerk will ensure that their verbal vote and their electronic vote are the same. If they are not the same, then they will be queried again. A member of council has the opportunity to change their vote right up until the moment when the chair calls that the vote has been approved or has failed. So moving on, June is National Indigenous History Month, an opportunity to celebrate the historic and modern contributions of the First Nations, Inuit and Métis people throughout Canada. It's also a time to learn more about the culture, traditions, and experiences of the Mi'kmaq, the first people of Nova Scotia. Nova Scotians are invited to take time to explore and reflect on what it means to be a treaty person. This meeting is called to order. Have all of the councillors received and reviewed their meeting package? Does any member of council have information pertaining to a matter before this council which has not been publicly circulated? I will remind members of council that we are in decision-making mode and we should be mindful of our decision-making wheel. We have committed to making balanced and respectful decisions and adhering to our code of conduct. We will be voting by electronic means on all votes except administrative. However, there will be a query after the voting is done. Are there any conflict of interest issues we should be aware of before the meeting commences? And I note that we have quorum. We have been provided with a proposed agenda. CAO, are there any further additions or changes to this agenda?
Yes, Your Worship, I have two additions. If we could add under new business, 5C, the sewer deficit. And if we could add in camera, 9B, Kings County RFD.
Thank you, CAO. There is a further change to the agenda. The racket facility update will be moved to in camera as we, as a council, will be discussing the land lease, and that is required to be done in camera. However, the document itself is not a protected or a confidential document, so it will remain in the public realm until we complete all of our work that needs to be done prior to moving that one along. Are there any further changes? I would take Deputy Mayor, thank you. And a seconder? Second. Councillor Zabian, thank you. All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. The minutes of the 27th of May 2024 council meeting have been distributed for review. If there are no changes, the minutes are approved as distributed. If there are changes, the recording secretary will annotate the minutes in red, and the annotated minutes will be added to the electronic meeting file as approved. Councillor Zabian?
Thank you, Mayor Snow. I think there's one mistake there. On item 4, capital borrowing, it says a withdrawal from the Town of Kentville operating reserve of $41,890. I think that should be budget, not reserve. Or should be reserve, not budget, sorry. It says budget there. Yeah, okay.
You got that? Yep. All right, thank you. Are there any further changes? All right, that's a yes. Thank you. You also have the council meeting minutes from the 30th of May special council operational budget meeting, and they were distributed for your review. If there are no changes, the minutes are approved as distributed. If there are changes, the recording secretary will annotate the minutes. No changes? All good. Thank you very much. All right, our first matter of business is, and the reason that we're here an hour early is the follow-up from the May 30th special council meeting. CAO, council was presented with the operational budget at a special meeting of council on May 30th. Council deferred approval of the budget to provide time for follow-up questions and a more fulsome review of the budget details. Is there anything else to add prior to moving to budget for adoption?
So administration has nothing more to add at this point in time.
Thank you, CAO. And for the record, there were questions that were provided in writing with follow-up, and there were other queries that were done on an ad hoc basis and were not detailed as they were seen as minor questions, and most of the questions provided the responses required. So that moves us on to the proposed 24-25 Town of Kentville operating budget. The Director of Finance has prepared a draft operating budget. Council was provided with a detailed presentation at a special meeting on May 30th, and subsequently all queries were answered. Council was solicited again on June 19th for further questions or queries. There were none arising. Staff has recommended the approval of the 24-25 operational budget and its tax rates. Director Matthews, the floor is yours. If there are any questions. Are there any questions? Oh, go ahead, CAO, sorry.
No, we had asked that questions be provided in advance and in writing. We provided copies to council. If council has additional supplemental, we will do our best to answer them.
All right, then, CAO, we'll get a motion on the floor and take questions within that discussion. So the motion is that council approve the 24-25 Town of Kentville operational budget in the amount of $17,353,316, and further that there is an overall tax rate increase of 0.00220 of 1 cent on residential due to a 13.4% increase in the fire area rate and a 6.7% increase in the economic development levy. The residential rate is $1.52840. And further that there is also an overall tax rate increase of 0.01110 of 1 cent on commercial, due again to the 13.4% increase in the fire area rate and an 8.3% increase in the economic development levy. The commercial rate is $3.51450. If someone could move that, please. Councillor Zabian, thank you. And Deputy Mayor for the second, thank you. It has been moved and seconded that council approve the 24-25 Town of Kentville operating budget in the amount of $17,353,316, and further that there is an overall tax rate of 0.00220 of 1 cent on residential due to a 13.4% increase in the fire area rate and a 6.7% increase in the economic development levy. The residential rate is $1.52840. And further, that there is an overall tax rate increase of 0.01110 of 1 cent on commercial due to a 13.4% increase in the fire area rate and an 8.3% increase in the economic development levy. The commercial rate is $3.51450. The floor is now open for discussion. Councillor Zabian.
Thank you, Mayor Snow. CAO, I have a question. The proposed positions of new employment here at Town Hall that are in this draft budget, have they already been filled in advance of the approval of the budget, or are they waiting for approval?
So the position with Public Works has not been filled and will not be filled until such time as there is a retirement. The other position would start on July 2nd in the Strategic Initiative Coordinator's role. There has been some overlap in duties during this transition period, but the current contract would have ended on June 30th.
Okay. And I think there was a new role upstairs here with administration upstairs. Has that been filled yet or not? I forget the title of that one. I don't have the budget in front of me.
That would be the
the same one?
strategic initiative
Okay.
coordinator's
Okay.
position, and that would be filled with an existing employee. It wouldn't be a new position on the org chart.
Okay. And the other question, and I might have to ask the Director of Recreation really quickly. I just want to understand one quick thing, and then I have a comment to make, but no more questions. I'm still trying to wrap my head against the summer programming, just the cost. Originally, we know that the rec hub didn't have heating, it didn't have cooling, so the council came together and there's a unit that's gonna be installed in there, and that's gonna make that unit usable all year round, and that's excellent. But we reduced the programming in half, but from what I understood from your response, Director, and I appreciate your prompt response, was that we're paying more for summer employment with less camp, right? That's what I got.
Are you referring to recreation as a whole, or are you
Well,
talking
no, I
about
think it
one
was just
single program?
the summer programming.
Summer
Yeah,
program?
not recreation as a whole.
Yeah, so in my response back, you would have seen that we're hiring an additional person.
Right.
That's because the feedback that council would receive was that staff aren't getting the opportunity to have a break. So we hired one additional person to have oversight. There is rent for the space that we'll be utilizing. And then there was a third aspect, the MERCs, so the employment benefits.
Right.
That went up over 8%.
So, thank you for that. So I guess my question is, if we have a heat pump coming in, why are we renting the fire hall? I'm just a little confused with that part. And I know you've probably committed to them, so I'm not asking you to uncommit.
We could go to the rec hub.
Yeah.
We would have to diminish our registration numbers down
Right.
to about 12.
Okay, and are the camps full now? The
They're
program
about,
that,
they're
yeah,
about 35% full.
okay, all right, thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. Could be to the CAO or it could be to the Director of Finance. Just would like the piece around the provincial change to grants and transfers explained a little bit more. I've read through this, I've reviewed it, I've seen some different comments made around the capacity grant that is increasing, but then in addition to that, there's the AVRC education change that's up by $297. So I'm just looking at that grants and transfers just to get an overall. It looks like there is actually a net funds not available to that. Like when you look at the increase in one area, but the decrease in the other area. You probably can go through that.
I'll take the first shot at it,
Okay.
and then the director can straighten me out if I'm off base in any way, shape, or form.
Okay.
In the SERM Guard, there's 3 components, and 2 of them are really provincial exchange, and I think it's corrections and justice. Housing? And then the offset in provincial is about 296,000, and an increase in education for the current year. And so those 2 net out against the education to a negative.
Okay.
The capacity grant is a grant that is provided to municipalities to assist them with their service, and it's need-based. When you do factor that in, and that is not a service exchange with the province,
Right.
the net change is a positive $51,000. But strictly on the service exchange component, netted out against the increase in education, it is a negative.
It is a negative.
Director, do you wish to add anything?
Could you repeat what you just said about negative? So you are correct, it was, I think it was 51,000 positive overall.
Yes.
But then you said something negative and I just missed it, I couldn't hear.
When you look at the service exchange numbers that benefit the town, where the province is taking over responsibility for paying, there's 2 components.
Correct.
And they are more than offset by the increase in education costing.
Right.
So at
Yeah,
on
that's
those
correct.
2 components, it's a net negative. When you build in the increase in capacity because of the different formula that's now utilized by the province, which is a grant to municipalities to provide services, it ends up being a net positive of 51,000 to the town.
Correct.
That's the 51,901.
Yeah.
Gotcha, okay. I think I asked this in the last budget meeting, but I'll ask it again. In terms of the discretionary piece of the operating budget, what percentage of that budget would be considered discretionary, that we have a lot of wiggle room with those numbers? Roughly, not exact, like if it's 10, 20, 30. suspect it's lower, but.
We didn't necessarily provide a percentage that would be consistent with what it would have been prior to last year. I think in previous years to when I came, that percentage would have been looking at all of the mandatory ISMA agreements, looking at any contracts that we have that may or may not have the ability for council to break, along with all staffing and inflation. So all of those pieces were removed and the balance was considered discretionary. And what I've provided this year, and I'm just gonna try and pull out the presentation, what we've provided is simply the total amount for external commitments and partnerships as being the only thing that would be non-discretionary.
Right.
Which would be a much lower number. However, it would require breaking of other contracts or whatnot to make, how do I say that? You have made commitments, but they're commitments you can get out of if you choose to.
I understand.
The commitments that are noted as being non-discretionary are external partnerships. That value represents those that you can't get out of.
Right, like Valley Waste.
That would be
or King's Trans-
non-discretionary.
Yep, okay,
So the non-discretionary amount is much lower than what you would have seen 2 years ago.
understand. Okay, great, thank you.
But that doesn't mean that you have the same level of flexibility.
Yes.
For all of the other spending.
For sure. Okay,
It would require layoffs and all those other kinds of things.
okay, great,
Okay.
thank you. Yes.
Is that helpful?
Yes.
Okay.
Councillor Zabian.
Thank you, Mayor Snow. I just want to say that I appreciate the time that goes into these budgets. I know they're a lot of work, and a balance has to budget. Obviously, we have to do that. But I looked this over very thoroughly over the last few weeks, and it keeps coming back to me that we got, I forget what the number is, almost 1.2 million last year, and I call it a windfall because assessments went up, and we did get that. And this year, it's I wrote it down here. Sorry, last year was 1,358,000, and this year it's 1,175,000. Those are pretty large increases. And we've been able to maintain the same stable tax rate. This year, just a slight increase, but not really on the fault of the tax rate. It's the other elements into it. But, so when you get this money, and I asked this last year, I said, should we drop the taxes? And nobody was for that. So I have another question. Why don't we, and I'm going to use this term and I don't mean any offense to it, why don't we really put our money where our mouth is right now and find a way to take some of this money and put it into our capital reserves a little more, to hike it up a little bit? Because that's where we need the money. That's going to help us long term. We're not going to have to borrow as much. We're going to save on the debt repayment, or we're going to have money in that capital reserve. And I know there's ways to trim this. I would like to take X amount of dollars and do that. I think that's really the best solution moving forward. That's where we need the money. We know that it's the big capital things that we're looking at. So I look at this and I say, okay, there's $2.5 million in the last 2 years, and it's gone. Like we've already spent the 1.4, and we're gonna spend this 1.2 again. There's gotta be a way to trim that a little bit, and put some of that money in there, because I look at it as this way as well. If we didn't have that money, if we didn't get that 1.2 this year and 1.3 last year, what would we be doing tonight? Increasing the taxes 10%? Like, that's a real good way to think about that, and it's just the way my brain works. I'd like to see that happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I'm going to remind you that you did move this motion, and speaking against the motion was to approve the operational budget, and as the mover, you are not entitled to speak against the motion. You can vote against it, but you cannot speak against it. So I will just caution you in what you have said. I could call you on a point of order. And I would ask that you refrain from speaking out in council. This is our meeting place. Thank you. One more time and you'll be leaving the room. Councillor Maxwell.
Well, thank you. I think I'm following what Councillor Zabian is saying. But I do believe that costs have increased from prior year to this year. And so for me and my thinking about budget and so on, I'm thinking that those costs were probably, what we gained in taxes were probably absorbed by increase of cost in materials and things like that. So that's kind of where I'm thinking that, you know, my groceries have gone up like crazy. So I'm eating less now. So I just think that that our costs have to have gone up as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Worship. One of the notes, and this could have been something that Director Matthews wrote or something I may have written down in the last meeting, but there was a section in there around recruitment and retention, and that there had been increased staffing costs to recruit. There was a demand for providers, more training to prep, and also an increase in costs to provide for succession planning. So I'm looking at you, CAO Lawrence, to confirm that that is an accurate statement?
It is accurate. So if you look at the Director of Planning that we recently hired, previously in the budget was the money for a junior position. We went out to determine what the market was for that position. Council approved the market. Retention is becoming a bigger and bigger issue. We see it in policing, and there were steps that were taken in the police budget this year to try and make sure that we were able to attract good candidates to the policing department. There is the new position that's Public Works that's mandated. We have changed the way we budget for positions now, so any position that's in the budget is now fully funded. Last year, there's a significant amount of money that we had. This year, a significant amount of the money for the lift had to go to fund positions for the full year. I agree with Councillor Zabian, and I think administration did a good job in moving significantly more monies over to capital this year. The number had been constant for many, many years. We addressed it in the capital from operations. We addressed it by increasing the amount to Public Works, and we addressed it for police equipment as well. The idea is that in future years, any lift will be available to have those discussions around tax rate, around capital, and around the operating budget. But there were a lot of significant cost drivers. Inflation is on its way down, but it's still a significant number, and I don't know if that answers your question or not.
Yeah, no, and to your point around inflation, I think it was 9.5 in 2022 and 4.06 in 2023 is on the way down, but certainly not, you know, exactly where it needs to be yet. So, and the other piece was around the position that you mentioned, whether it was new or existing, you budgeted at the full year, whereas we didn't necessarily. And okay, yep, thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you. Are there any further comments with regards to this motion that's on the floor currently? If there's none, I'll take the opportunity to speak about our tax revenue and the fact that it has increased by 9.6% this year. However, if we remember our asset management training, they have told us that it takes 4% of a budget, an increase in a budget to maintain the standard for your life cycle management costs of your infrastructure. And if you consider that the town of Kentville has over 200 million in both above and below ground infrastructure, 172 million of that is actually our underground infrastructure, and the rest is above ground. So our expenditures on the other side of our ledger have increased by 10.6%. 10.4%. And when we look at our external commitments and partnership, as we've been told, they've got an increase of 4% as well. So we really have no room in our current revenue streams to take on a reduction in taxes or moving money out of our operations into our capital. And I guess that's one of the advantages of municipal government, is that we must end every year with a zero balance. And if we have extra money available, it will always go into capital and will be maintained for that. The other thing we have to look at is that the town of Kentville has maintained a very steady tax rate for the last 4 years, despite the changes that we've seen. And one of the numbers that I'm going to ask council to pay particular attention to, and to the members of our audience who are looking at this stuff, is that when you look at our budgets, you know, we talk about our revenues from taxes. And, you know, if you look at this year's number, according to what we've been provided with, it says that we're going to have $17,353,316,000 in, or sorry, that was all revenue. So $13,382,793 is what we expect from our tax revenue. Now, at the end of the year, if you look at what our actual tax revenue was, because some of the things that you may not remember is that we do have a reduced tax rate for some of our residents. We also have numerous places in town that don't pay taxes or pay a residential rate instead of a commercial rate. So that actually affects the amount of revenue that we have coming in the door. So if you look at 2023, we had a budget of $10,851,700 as our tax revenue. However, our actual collection of taxes was $8,283,424. So you see, that's a $2 million difference between what we budgeted as our potential for collecting and what we actually collected. So that's a number to be very mindful when you're looking at our sheets to see how much revenue we're actually gaining from this grand tax assessment that we have, and how much revenue we're seeing in other streams. So are there any further discussion on this matter? Are you ready for the question? The question is that council approve the 24-25 Town of Kentville operational budget in the amount of $17,353,316, and further that there is an overall tax rate increase of 0.00220 of 1 cent on residential due to 13.4% increase in the fire area rate and a 6.7% increase in the economic development levy. The residential rate is $1.52840. And further, that there is an overall tax rate increase of 0.01110 of 1 cent on commercial due to the 13.4% increase of the fire area rate and an 8.3% increase of the economic development levy. The commercial rate is $3.51450. Voting is now open, although you can't see it on the screen.
Want your clickers to me? Oh, to you? To me? Yep.
Let us know if you're waiting for anyone.
And I have everybody.
Councillor Gerard, how say you?
Yes.
Councillor Huntley, how say you? Councillor Zabian, how say you?
No.
Councillor York, how say you? Councillor Savage, Deputy Mayor Savage, how say you?
Yes.
Councillor Maxwell, how say you?
Yes.
And I say yes, the motion is carried. Thank you very much, and this vote matches the online vote. Thank you very much. All right, we're moving right along to our new business, and the first item of new business is with regards to the sewer main replacement on Elm Street. CAO, did you wish to speak to this, or is Director Bell speaking to it?
Your worship, if you're okay, I'll hit the high points, and Director Bell will be available to answer any details. As you remember, we talked about an urgent sewer main replacement. This goes to where costing is going for these projects. We felt very comfortable that the budget of $75,000 would be sufficient. We went to tender. Director Bell, we had 3 or 4? 4 tenders. 4 tenders. The low tender is $155,190 plus HST. Administration is still recommending that we proceed with the project. The work has to be done. It is leading to sewer backing up into residences. If there's any more questions than that, then Director Bell would be happy to answer them.
Thank you very much for that, CAO. I was going to try and take the opportunity and say you were taking the high points and he was going to take the low points, but you didn't give me the opportunity, so we'll move on to a motion that council approve the award of the replacement of the sanitary sewer main, associated pipes and fixtures on Elm Avenue between Civic 75 and 83 to Dexter Construction Company Limited for $155,190 plus HST. And further, that it be funded from a combination of sewer operating, capital, and depreciation reserve funds. Councillor York, thank you. Deputy Mayor, I'll take you for the second. It has been moved and seconded that council approve the award of the replacement of the sanitary sewer main, associated pipes and fixtures on Elm Avenue between Civic 75 and 83 to Dexter Construction Company Limited for $155,190 plus HST, and further to be funded from a combination of the sewer operating, capital, and depreciation reserve funds. Is there any discussion on this matter? There being no discussion, are you ready for the question? The question is on adoption of the motion to approve the award of the replacement of the sanitary sewer main, associated pipes and fixtures on Elm Avenue between Civic 75 and 83, 75 to 83 to Dexter Construction Company Limited for $155,190 plus HST, and further to be funded from a combination of sewer operating, capital, and depreciation reserve funds. Voting is now open. Councillor Gerard, how say you?
Yes.
Councillor Huntley, how say you?
Yes.
Councillor Zabian, how say you?
Yes.
Councillor York, how say you?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor? Yes. Councillor Maxwell?
Yes.
And I say yes, the motion is carried. Thank you very much. That puts us on to the Valley Waste debenture issuance. We have a recommendation from the Intermunicipal Service Agreement, IMSA Board of Directors, to approve the debenture issuance based on the capital projects in the amount of $1,735,000, with the Town of Kentville share at $178,102. CAO, did you wish to speak to this matter?
Yes, Your Worship. After 2 very interesting council items, this should be relatively straightforward. It was as per the budget that was presented by Valley Waste, and council approved that budget, including capital. This is just the formal guarantee for our portion of the $1.735 million, or $178,102. So we'd be looking for a motion.
Thank you, CAO. And the motion is that council approve the Valley Waste debenture issuance in the amount of $1,735,000, with the Town of Kentville share $178,102. Councillor Zabian, thank you. Councillor Maxwell?
Yeah.
Thank you. It has been moved and seconded that council approve the Valley Waste debenture issuance in the amount of $1,735,000, with the Town of Kentville share at $178,102. Is there any discussion on this matter?
Yeah,
certainly.
that's me too. Yeah,
The memo states 176,102.
176,102.
Okay, that's me.
So it's still the 1,735,000, but the share is 176,102.
Okay. All right, thank you for that. And Counselor Zabian, you're still? Counselor Maxwell, you're still good? Okay, thank you with that clarification. All right, the floor is open for discussion. Counselor Gerard.
Thank you, Worship. It's not specific about this, but what is the status at Valley Waste with Annapolis County? Just curious as to,
Your worship,
if this is something we should discuss at another time, that's fine. I'm just,
the discussions have been in camera at Valley Waste. I can tell you that discussions are ongoing, but I can't say
okay.
more than that.
No, that's fine. Thank you.
We are a service provider, and they are paying a premium for that service. Are there any further questions or discussion on this matter? Are you ready for the question? The question is on adoption of the motion to approve the Valley Waste debenture issuance in the amount of $1,735,000 with the town of Kentville's share at $176,102. Voting is now open. Thank you. Councillor Gerard?
Yes.
Councillor Huntley?
Yes.
Councillor Zabia?
Yes.
Councillor York?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor?
Yes.
Councillor Maxwell?
Yes.
And I say yes, motion is carried. Thank you very much. All right, we have recommendations from the CAC meeting, and they will be read by Councillor Gerard. Councillor Gerard, floor is yours.
Is there not one more item that we added, sewer deficit?
That was the addition.
Oh,
Not that I'm
yes,
not eager
okay.
to read this.
All right. See, I just wanted to hear your mellifluous voice. All right, let's move on to that sanitary sewer withdrawal from the operating reserve. So we do have a recommendation from the Director of Finance to cover off an operating deficit in the sanitary sewer account to, that council approved the withdrawal of $12,319 from the sanitary sewer operating reserve. CAO, did you wish to speak to this?
Thank you, Your Worship. This is standard for the town when we do run a deficit. These numbers are unaudited, but we feel very comfortable with them. Just looking for a motion to move over the $12,319 from the sewer operating reserve to cover off the shortfall for the year. I don't know if Director Matthews has anything else she would like to add to that?
I believe that I would just suggest that we perhaps leave the dollar value open to just say that council, we're recommending to council to transfer the value of the deficit. We anticipate it to be $12,319, but if through audit, which is still occurring, it's different by $1, then we'd have to come back to council. So I don't anticipate it to be any different, but that may keep us from having to come back before audit committee in July.
That works. So our motion would read that council approve the transfer of the existing deficit from the sanitary sewer operating reserve to cover off the deficit, subject to final auditor year-end review.
So moved.
Deputy Mayor, thank you. Councillor Maxwell, thank you. It has been moved and seconded that council approve the transfer of the deficit from the sanitary sewer operating reserve to cover off the deficit, subject to final auditor year-end review. Is there any discussion on this matter? There being no discussion, are you ready for the question? The question is on adoption of the motion to approve the transfer of the deficit from the sanitary sewer operating reserve to cover off the deficit, subject to final auditor year-end review. Voting is now open. Flying fingers of fury.
Okay, please proceed to vote. Good job, thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Councillor Gerard.
Yes.
Councillor Huntley.
Yes.
Counselor Zabian?
Yes.
Counselor York?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor?
Yes.
Counselor Maxwell?
Yes.
And I say yes, the motion is carried. Thank you very much. Now we move on to our recommendations from our, yes, our CAC meeting, and with the mellifluous voice of Counselor Gerard leading us through this. Thank you.
At the June 10th, 2024 meeting of Council Advisory Committee, Alan Warner and Soren Bondrup Nielsen from the Chain Lakes Wilderness Area Community Group gave a presentation on the Blomidon Naturalist Society in the Chain Lakes Wilderness Area, adjacent to the Cloud Lake Wilderness Area. They are asking the provincial government to designate the Chain Lakes as a protected area for biodiversity, recreation, and tourism. Mr. Bondrup Nielsen and Mr. Warner are requesting a letter of support from the town of Kentville for this protected area. Council Advisory recommends, and I move that council write a letter of support for the proposed Chain Lakes protected area.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Deputy Mayor, thank you. It has been moved and seconded that council write a letter of support for the Chain Lakes protected area. Is there any discussion on this matter? There being no discussion, are you ready for the question? The question is to write a letter of support for the Chain Lakes protected area. Voting is now open. Thank you. Counselor Gerard? No.
Oh, sorry, yes, yes.
How say you? Yes. Counselor Huntley?
Yes.
Counselor Zabian?
Yes.
Counselor York?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor?
Yes.
Counselor Maxwell?
Yes.
And I say yes, the motion is carried. Thank you very much.
Now, okay.
No.
At the June 10th, 2024 meeting of Council Advisory Committee, Director of Recreation Craig Langell presented a request from the Kentville Rotary Club for the donation of a gazebo adjacent to the Recreation Hub building and the KCA playground to celebrate 100 years of Rotary service. Council Advisory Committee recommends, and I so move, that the council direct the CAO to review the offer from the Kentville Rotary Club for the donation of a gazebo.
I'm not going to call a second on this because, as you stated, there was work that was ongoing, so the CAO has a comment here.
Through you, Your Worship, I've spoken to the Director of Recreation and the Director of Public Works, and administration has no concerns with the location as presented. And if council so wishes and wants to provide notice to the Rotary Club to proceed, administration would be supportive of that at the location that they had identified.
So, Councillor, the new motion would read that council direct the CAO to proceed with the installation of the gazebo from the Kentville Rotary Club.
Yes, I agree.
All right, now do we have a seconder for that motion? Deputy Mayor, thank you. So it has been moved and seconded that council direct the CAO to proceed with the installation of the gazebo from the Kentville Rotary Club. Is there any discussion on this matter?
I have a question. I was approached by a Rotary member about a different piece of land he was asking about. Is this the piece of land that the Rotary Club has decided that they would like to use?
Yes.
Okay. Nope, that's perfect.
Okay.
You could have done that from your seat.
All right, if there's no further discussion on this matter, are you ready for the question? The question is to direct the CAO to proceed with the installation of the gazebo from the Kentville Rotary Club. Voting is now open. Thank you. Councillor Gerard, how say you?
Yes.
Councillor Huntley?
Yes.
Councillor Zabian?
Yes.
Councillor York?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor?
Yes.
Councillor Maxwell?
Yes.
And I say yes, the motion is carried. Thank you very much. All right, moving right along to the next one.
At the June 10th, 2024 meeting of Council Advisory Committee, Director of Recreation Craig Langell presented a request for climate control in the Recreation Hub building in the form of a heat pump to provide heating and cooling for camps and new and existing programs. Council Advisory Committee recommends, and I so move, that council approve all allocation, the allocation of capital funding in the amount of $7,000 for the purchase and installation of a heat pump at the Recreation Hub, and further that staff pursue grants to offset the cost of the heat pump.
Councillor Zabian, thank you. It has been moved and seconded that council approve the allocation of capital funding in the amount of $7,000 for the purchase and installation of a heat pump at the Recreation Hub, and further that staff pursue grants to offset the cost of the heat pump. Is there any discussion on this matter? There being no discussion, are you ready for the question? The question is on adoption of the motion to approve the allocation of capital funding in the amount of $7,000 for the purchase and installation of a heat pump at the Recreation Hub, and further that staff pursue grants to offset the cost of the heat pump. Voting is now open. Councillor Gerard, how say you?
Yes.
Councillor Huntley?
Yes.
Councillor Zabian?
Yes.
Councillor York?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor?
Yes.
Councillor Maxwell?
Yes.
And I say yes, the motion is carried. Thank you very much.
At the June 10th, 2024 meeting of Council Advisory Committee, Director Dave Bell presented a request for funding from the capital reserves to purchase a new vehicle to support public works operations. To avoid significant depreciation of one of the town's trucks with plow, staff are working to order and obtain this vehicle, which could take over 1 year. Council Advisory Committee recommends, and I so move, that council approve the switch in fiscal years for the Public Works Capital Transportation Equipment to purchase a 2-ton plow and salt truck in 24-25 and order the planned street sweeper now for delivery and purchase in 25-26.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor, thank you. It has been moved and seconded that council approve the switch in fiscal years for the Public Works Capital Transportation Equipment to purchase a 2-ton plow and salt truck in 24-25 and order the planned street sweeper for now for delivery and purchase in 25-26. Is there any discussion on this matter? There being no discussion, are you ready for the question? The question is on adoption of the motion to approve the switch in fiscal years for the Public Works Capital Transportation Equipment to purchase a 2-ton plow and salt truck in 24-25 and order the planned street sweeper now for delivery and purchase in 25-26. Voting is now open. Councillor Gerard, how say you?
Yes.
Councillor Huntley?
Yes.
Councillor Zabian?
Yes.
Councillor York?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor?
Yes.
Councillor Maxwell?
Yes.
And I say yes, the motion is carried. Thank you very much.
At the June 10th, 2024 meeting of Council Advisory Committee, Deputy Clerk Jennifer West reviewed the staff report which outlines the existing environmental initiatives led by the town and the suggestion of an environmental planning task team. The purpose of the team will be to participate in the Quest Net Zero Accelerator Program and to create a framework for a standing committee of council on environmental issues. Council Advisory Committee recommends, and I so move, that council approve the establishment of a 1-year environment planning task team to A, support the work of the Quest Net Zero Accelerator Program, and B, create the framework for a standing committee of council for environmental issues.
Thank you. Seconder? Councillor York, thank you. It has been moved and seconded that council approve the establishment of a 1-year environment planning task team to support the work of the Quest Net Zero Accelerator Program, and further create a framework for a standing committee of council for environmental issues. Is there any discussion on this matter? There being no discussion, are you ready for the question? The question is that council approve the establishment of a one-year environment planning task team to support the work of the Quest Net Zero Accelerator Program, and further create a framework for a standing committee of council for environment issues. Voting is now open. Thank you. Councillor Gerard, how say you?
Yes.
Councillor Huntley?
Yes.
Councillor Zabia?
Yes.
Councillor York?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor?
Yes.
Councillor Maxwell?
Yes.
And I say yes, the motion is carried. Thank you very much. All right, our correspondence, no, recommendations and reports. All right, moving on to our mayor's, our council and mayor's reports. Councillor Gerard, you're up first.
Thank you, Worship. I apologize to the clerk that I did not get a physical report in, but I had Police Commission this month, which the Chair York will report on. I had Water Commission, which the mayor, who was the chair of that committee, will report on. But I would like to say congratulations to Harlan Wood and his board and the volunteers for a successful weekend. It was, unfortunately, I don't think the weather cooperated on Sunday, but Saturday certainly was a good time. And yeah, they did a great job again this year. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Huntley.
Thank you. Sorry. First thing I want to do is congratulate one of our very own athletes, Phil Brown. He has been chosen to represent Canada at the Worlds in South Africa in October. So I saw him on Facebook and he was pretty excited about that, and we're all behind you for sure. In my report, you will see a list of meetings that I have attended to. I will pull out just a couple before I go into my conference report. And the first one was the Valley Wren's AGM meeting that they had at the Bentridge Winery. I wanted to say that, yes, I have been nominated as chair of the LOC, the Liaison and Oversight Committee. And for those who may be unfamiliar with the Valley Wren's governance structure, the LOC oversees the Valley Wren's Board of Directors and is comprised of representatives from funding partners including Glooscap First Nations, municipalities of Kings County, West Hants, towns of Berwick, Kentville, Wolfville, Middleton, and the province. And the one thing I really want to thank, one person actually, is the mayor of Berwick, Don Clark, who has carried the role of vice chair for quite a long time and is going to be big shoes to fill, but he did a great job. The next thing I want to talk about is the province was seeking input from 3 elected officials to also work with senior municipal administrators on an RFP for the Department of Environment and Climate Change, who will be engaging consulting services to assist municipalities with sample bylaws for coastal land use planning. This is in line with Action 8 in the provincial document, The Future of Nova Scotia Coastline. With the work NSFM is doing with the province, the NSFM Board of Directors were asked for 3 members, and the following were voted in by its board. Councillor Paul Russell of Halifax, Deputy Warden Brad Redden of the County of Annapolis, and myself as a representative for the town of Kentville. So I look forward to having us at the table to work on that. The last thing that I would want to talk about is, not in my report, but I did have some communication with residents, and I thought I would just put in the topics of what we talked about. Excuse me. One was the tree trimming and overgrown on their property. Second was Ron Cousins' land. Third was the Fairview Avenue dumping. The next was Canada flags at Memorial Park and the cenotaph issues. Also, there were complaints about there were children running underneath the new seating, so apparently there's one opening where they can get in, and they were disturbing some people who were watching the game. There's also a comment about signage needed for area on Chester Avenue regarding large trucks jake braking, so it's quite a noise coming down there. And the other one was street and line painting at the arena area, lane change, and also speed limits. Some of the answers I've already gotten, and I thank you for that, Jeff. And, Director of Public Works, Dave, is already working on some of the work with the resident, so I thank him for that. Moving on to my report for the conference. Bear with me for a second. So the trip for the FCM conference was called Redefining Our Future. I attended the FCM conference in Calgary, which was held June 6th to the 9th. One councillor, one mayor attended from the town of Kentville, and a total of 3,100 leaders attended, making it the largest FCM conference ever held. My position as a board member with FCM has ended its one-year term, and it was disappointing to not have Kentville represented at the federal table moving forward, but it was a rewarding experience. I'd like to kind of add a note there, and it's a personal note really, before I go on. I'd like to say thank you to my council team for voting to allow me to put my name forward for the FCM board. And also thank you to all the municipal leaders in Nova Scotia who voted for me to represent them. It was not only an honor, but a way to learn and understand how we can have our voice at the federal table for contributed impact. The following committees also went along with being a board member: Rural Forum, Election Readiness Working Group, Social Economic Development, Municipal Finance, Infrastructure, and Transportation. One of the most successful pieces that really stood out to me was during my 1 year as a board member was the building of relationships and how impactful an opportunity you have to tell your story at the table, from meetings and conferences to meetings at the House of Commons. And from some of these meetings, MPs came to Kentville to visit and meet local groups, hear what they are doing for their communities, and also talk about opportunities moving forward. Kentville was at the federal level. I look forward for the next table of councillors to see the value of that they have an opportunity to help make Kentville to be remembered as the municipality who was always at the table with their voice. Under my trip report, I came under Administration and Finances. The cost fee for the conference was $1192.80. Total expenses being $3878.32, which was borne by the town of Kentville. Conference content, schedule is attached from Thursday to Sunday. Calgary certainly did not disappoint, and the amount of networking and learning was huge. The trade show floor booths were full, and so many takeaways from discussions on coastal protection, Fire Smart Canada, Pets Canada, Destination Canada, Green Municipal Fund, and more. Guest speakers federally, Prime Minister Trudeau, who had a Q&A, and we all thought that was very brave of him, and he did a great job. Sorry, my screen is jumping. Okay. It was a full house. Elizabeth May, leader of the Green Party, Scott Aitchison, Housing with Conservative Party, discussion on transfer money, Yasmeet Singh, NDP leader, Housing Minister Sean Fraser, new president for FCM is now Jeff Stewart. He is now the deputy mayor at Municipality of Colchester, which I think it's a big feather in the cap for Nova Scotia. And it was nice to see up on the stage Honourable Minister Sean Fraser from Nova Scotia and the new president from Nova Scotia. So I think we're in good hands. Some ideas and conversations. The first meeting was with Destination Canada about a possible pilot project with the Annapolis Valley. I proposed it to them. I said it's time to do something innovative on tourism for us, and discussions also with presentations for municipal councils, including videos for chamber residents, to show them what is happening and what is being planned. Discussion on funding for planting new trees, the Growing Canada's Community Canopies with team. I had discussed with them what our economic development coordinator had already done with investment, and they have already reached out through that meeting for a further discussion. Chatted with the advisor from Green Municipal Fund Program Outreach on getting financial support for our rink. Of course, we had discussion on the report that has been done, and they asked for a copy so they could show us any missing holes for info. So if we decide to go that route, we can fix the holes early, get a funding request in, and that meeting was approximately 30 minutes. Because of this, I have had a meeting with our Director of Recreation to review. They will be connected once the final report is sent out from the consultants, but note as of June 19th, both parties have now been connected for conversation. Chatted with the CSA group on their upcoming work with coastal protection and how we can collaborate on my role with the RFP work with the province. Also brought back a lot of info for flood-resilient designs, standards for stormwater systems, climate change impacts, codes and standards for infrastructure, and water standards. It was a how-to guide for municipalities. Met with Fire Smart Canada, so discussions on their booklets for the residents. Fire Smart Home Guide, Guide to Landscaping, their neighborhood recognition program. The Fire Smart program info will be discussed with our MLA, Minister John Lohr, who is responsible for the Office of Emergency Management that can help with the Nova Scotia Guard program, which I see has already come out. Info for our Economic Development Officer and new marketing ideas, etc. Discussions from other municipalities on supporting an art program with each other. What Works City's certification-free program. It's a data-driven governance decision-making on topics such as air quality, sustainable development, accessible services, etc. And it is free, so it is definitely worth looking into. Sessions on enhancing rural connectivity, so bridging the digital divide in rural municipalities. Many ideas and challenges they spoke of could be passed on to David Benoit, the CEO of Build Nova Scotia for Learnings, as this is one of the Nova Scotia challenges to connecting over our geographical areas. And one of the big concerns is when emergency services are needed. The ideas for consideration, I've already met with the Rec Department Director and Manager of Rec Services on many programs. We could copy in our own way, so there will be more to come as meeting progress. The impact of having your municipality represented at the federal table is crucial. Sorry. Yes, it is. The impact of having your municipality represented at the federal table is crucial when you listen to the many conversations on how funding may change and discussed when election time comes. To see an empty FCM board seat from Nova Scotia is a step backward, as in 1 year you are just gaining traction. I wish the new council all the best in their learnings. I hope they will see the benefits of meeting with local leaders across Canada. And I make a recommendation that the town of Kentville just continue to attend the FCM conferences, as cross-section attendance is extremely important, as contacting other councillors and staff facilitates the most ongoing processes. In listening to all the guest speakers on stage, one of the conversations was about federal transfers. And it was quite an in-depth conversation, and he stated that moving forward, if and when government changes, anything happens in 2025, there will be no more government transfers unless you follow what they say. One of the things that scares me about it is not about the rules, it's about taking away that municipal autonomy, because municipal leaders know the residents and where they live, and they try to make the best decisions moving forward. So sometimes when those decisions would be overtaken by a federal or even a provincial, I guess it makes me second guess of what the actual thought is. So anyway, sorry not to hog the space, but it was wonderful to go there. It was good to hear the big picture. It was everything fell in line from all the guests about the FCM's municipal growth framework and what they are trying to do. And I had brought a video, but we weren't able to show it tonight because it would have given you a nice, gathering of what we had talked about. But I'm hoping to show it when I have invited the FCM president to come and speak to council. So he is planning that. So more info on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you. On May 30th, I attended the special council meeting operating budget, which we tabled and went over and passed tonight. June 10th was the CAC. On June 13th, I went to the Anglican Church Stained Glass Windows Historical Talk with Louis Comeau. And the stained glass windows in the Anglican Church are, in my personal opinion, the most beautiful in the province. The talk by our local historian, Louis Comeau, was very interesting and informative. The organizers from St. James were fantastic, pointing out each window that was being discussed and supplying snacks afterwards. A bonus was that the organizers at St. James were dressed in period clothing, And it was really a great event, and if you haven't had a chance to go into the church and have a look at those stained glass windows, I really recommend it, because they really are historical pieces, and really we should know what we have in our town. So this is really something that's special. I attended the Annapolis Valley Trails Coalition committee, and the County of Kings has supplied their money to the coalition, and grants have been put into other municipalities or have been asked for. I think there's an issue with so much paperwork, and I think with the restructuring, and I've talked about this before with the coalition, trying to make it so that we're not putting so much work on the person who chairs that committee, because really Beth has been overloaded for the last few years with seeking funding. The province has, at one time, they were not going to recommit to their funding, but they have committed $15,000 for this year, $10,000 for the following year, and $5,000 in the third year. So they are pulling back with some of their funding, but hopefully that will be able to be made up. We discussed the maintenance for the 16 kilometers of Kings County Trail that Trailblazers is no longer doing maintenance on the trail in sections where they were before, and so there was some discussion on that, how that was going to be maintained. A large discussion was held concerning a renewed look for the coalition. Kings County's Rob Frost, I think he's a CAO, is that correct? Yeah. Is taking the lead in mapping out a way forward with the financing, and is looking at the two options that were selected by the coalition. Option 4 includes intermunicipal service agreements, and option 5 was a pay-for-service type of structure. A presentation will be given at our next meeting concerning what his suggestion might be. Trail groups gave input on what roles they would like to see for themselves in this new format. And trail groups actually are the ones with the motorized vehicles, so that's most trail groups. And finally, a discussion took place on promoting the Harvest Moon Trail for tourism and how to enhance that. So we're getting more information out there, and the Valley Wren was discussed as a possible partner for that. On June 2nd, I met with a citizen concerning summer camps, and on June 14th, I met with the CAO and Recreation Director to discuss summer camps and utilizing community connections. On June 18th, I attended the KBC AGM. Strategic planning was a focus for them, with a look to the future. There is a new energetic executive director, Jordan Banyan. In his introductory remarks, he noted he was in Kentville 10 years ago, and noticed now a huge difference in the look of the town with more shops and beautification. So he really noticed a big difference in our town in the last 10 years since he's been here, when he was here before. And I have to agree with him. Jordan noted the lack of accessibility around town, and that will be something that KBC will plan to work on. I did suggest that they place someone on our accessibility committee, and so hopefully we will see someone there. There is a lot of enthusiasm with the members of KBC, and I expect good things to be happening over the years to come. And that is my report.
Thank you very much. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. So June the 18th was the KBC AGM, and Councillor Maxwell just covered that off. There was good attendance. It was great videos of what's transpired. Strategic planning is the key moving forward, and Jordan Banyan is settling in quite well, and very impressed with the growth in Kentville and the look of the downtown over the last number of years. June the 12th was Investment Advisory Committee, where we had our presentation from our investment advisor, TD Wealth. Our money-weighted performance was 1.69%. against the balanced income CAD of 0.49%. Some notes worth mentioning were TELUS raised their dividend, RBC also raised their dividend, and our portfolio now is just north of 13 million. We have approximately 400,000 coming due this month, and we will likely ladder the funds with a bond and GIC mix. We are still not venturing too deep yet into the equity piece. As noted in the operating budget, which was passed tonight, we are looking to increase our withdrawal from the fund from 460 to 560 per annum to facilitate additional funds going into our capital reserves, which are desperately needed as we move forward with a $28 million capital budget over the ensuing 5 years. June the 12th was KBC, was a board meeting, minutes to follow once they come out. May 30th was our budget meeting, of course. May 23rd was a joint meeting of councils where the presentation came from Valley Wren, talking about the tourism levy, municipalities across the valley and beyond, and what this means for council to implement this item. May 23rd was a meeting with CAO Lawrence and Director Bell with regards to sidewalks. I have future RFD to come. May 25th, took a walk around the lands around the Don Hiltz Collector with Councillor Gerard. June the 1st, Apple Blossom Festival weekend. I attended a number of events over that weekend. June 3rd, a meeting with resident Greg White. June 4th, meeting with resident Corey Hubers. June the 8th was the VCLA Literacy Mile, which is a very important event and a fundraiser at the end of the year celebration. There were awards presented, and this is really a time to enhance the profile of this rich organization in our town of Kentville. VCLA, for folks that may or may not know, is run by a not-for-profit board of governors whose sole purpose is to raise the literacy levels of those living in Kings and Annapolis Valley. They've helped in excess of 200 individuals learn English and read, and they've helped 80 plus gain their GED. Some 130 have acquired computer skills, and the list goes on. Folks that attend VCLA are treated with dignity and thus supported to live their lives in the presence of same. It was a wonderful event. I was happy to attend. June the 10th, I attended the NSCC grads. There's 3 that day for the different graduates, whether it's business or whether it's health, social services. And Don Bureau, of course, who's the president of all of the NSCCs across the province, gave interesting remarks around talking to students about social fitness. Very interesting. June the 10th, CAO Lawrence and Deputy Clerk Jennifer and the Rec Director Langell to prepare for CAC. June the 15th, you all right?
I'm gonna need you to take this so I go cough. I've got one.
Yep, that's fine. June the 15th was NECEC, Parade Prom, great pivot on behalf of the organizers. It was wonderful, and that's the end of my report. Councillor York, go ahead.
Thank you. So I've attended all the same council and CAC meetings as the rest of the group. It was a Board of Police Commission meeting heavy month. We had a couple of budget meetings and as well as our regular meetings. We're in the final stages of our working with the KPS on our strategic plan, on their strategic plan rather, with input from the board, which means that there's input from the community and what the community expectations of a community police force would be. So those expectations are being brought through the Board of Police Commission and being represented in the strat plan for them. Additionally, we are doing a lot of reviewing at the moment. So there is a review through the Nova Scotia Federation of Municipalities with policing across the province, and that has the board chairs, CAOs, and police departments reviewing and combing through their information. I think we got an extension on that, so we dodged a bit of a bullet, but still getting all of that information to those who need it has been a bit time consuming, but we're getting through it. Anecdotally, while we're going through all of those bits of information, we have noticed, and I will preface it by saying that while correlation is obviously not causation, it is interesting to note that since we've hired our community crisis navigator in 2022, we've seen a decrease in calls overall for the police department. However, the seriousness of the calls has increased. So there are fewer of them, but they are more complicated. But it would not, it should be mentioned that through Ashley's work as the community crisis navigator, she is removing some of those frequent calls from the police department. So that's interesting to note all the same. I had the honor of going to the Heritage Trust Awards. Our library in 2019 was awarded an award for the work that they did on a place of worship, then reimagining it into a library space. Obviously, with a little pandemic in there, we weren't able to, or they weren't able to host awards, and then they got delayed again for internal reasons. So I spent the evening in Dartmouth last week, and that was exciting. I have the award here to be displayed either here in Town Hall or in the library itself. I was involved with some judging opportunities with the Apple Blossom Festival. I was really excited to see the reimagined youth portion of their event that focuses on the passions of youth and the work that they're doing in the community. It was a fascinating couple of days learning about a lot of things outside of my depth, which was always exciting, and then judging for the Children's Parade as well. I was with Rewind 89.3, and we did the Make-A-Wish Foundation, Make-A-Wish Day, the Radiothon. It's Cole Wittenberg Day here in Kings County. And that day is to honor Cole Wittenberg and his family and their continuing legacy of raising funds for Make-A-Wish Foundation. I do believe that is everything of note.
Thank you very much. Councillor Sapin, please.
Thank you, Mayor Snow. I attended all the same meetings as my colleagues here. On June 15th, there was a Kentville Water Commission meeting, and I'm sure Mayor Snow will report that. She's the chair. On June 6th, I had the opportunity to represent the town and attend the Chamber of Commerce event at Acadia, and that was a great night. So many Kentville businesses were represented there, and it was just a nice feeling. You felt pretty proud to be part of this town. And I want to congratulate all the nominees, and of course, special congratulations to Open Arms, Annapolis Valley Air Management, and Lou Murphy Group, who all took away awards. June 15th was the prom parade at KCA. That was great. I also attended the Apple Blossom Festival, which was great. Devil's Half Acre was very, very great. Amount of people attended that, I think up from last year from what Harlan said. And there was an Eid dinner at the Louis Millage Center last week, and it was great to see Mayor Matart there, and Deputy Mayor of Wolfville also attended. And this month, I've had several, almost daily, residents popping in just with issues related to sewer permits and development questions. I know that we have a development officer coming, so that'll be, or director coming, so that'll be great. And my expenses for the month are just my cell phone, $36.51. Thank you.
Thank you. CAO, did you have an update for council?
Thank you, Your Worship. Quickly, happy to be completed with the operational budget for the year. Very happy to announce that we have an offer and acceptance for the Town of Kentville Director of Planning position. It's Darren Shoup, and I won't go into a review of his full resume, but a couple of the municipal highlights. He's currently the Manager of Planning for Annapolis County and Annapolis Royal. Before that, he was Senior Planner with the Municipality of the District of Lunenburg. Before that, CAO with the Town of Shelburne. And before taking that position, he was the Manager of Community and Economic Development. So he should bring a large amount of expertise. Excited to have him join the team. July 8th, he will be his first day, and I'll make sure that he attends CAC to be introduced to council. Reminiscent of me on January 29th, here you go. Good luck, here's Municipal Council. Attended regular committee meetings that others were at. Attended a special meeting of the IMSA board. Met with Julia Ogilvie at KBC. There were some concerns about the sidewalk project and notification. Worked with administration regarding the Kentville Water Commission budget and year end. and attended the REN Regional Economic Development bi-monthly meeting.
Thank you, CAO. Are there any questions for the CAO with regards to his report? All right, moving right along to my report. This report was due on the 19th of June, so any meetings that occurred after that time are not reported on this report, however, will be reported on the next one. You all have a copy of my report and the trip report from FCM in Calgary. One of the interesting conferences that I attended actually was a Zoom call, and it was with regards to circular food hubs and lessons learned from Nova Scotia. So this was put on by the FCM, and it was a cross-country, I'll call it a checkup on what different places are doing with food. And I have to say that kudos went out to the province of Nova Scotia and the way that we're dealing with it, particularly our grocery store owners and operators who are ensuring that food is being saved from the garbage cycle. So we're doing some pretty amazing work on that front. The FCM conference again this year was held in Calgary. Next year it will be held in Ottawa from May the 28th until June the 1st. And one of the things, I guess one of the defining moments of the FCM was when Deputy Mayor Jeff Stewart of Colchester County took over as the president of the FCM. This is a one-year post where he will be the political face of the FCM from coast to coast to coast. Now, for those of you who know Jeff, he is he's just one of those people with a very quiet voice, and he carries a big stick because people stop and they listen to what Jeff has to say, and he is such a gentleman. And the other thing, Jeff has really been working hard on his French, because of course FCM is bilingual, and him and I had the opportunity to chat in French for a bit, and he was doing so well. But I'm going to tell you, when he got up on that stage, every bit of French that he knew just went flying out of his ears, because he butchered it, but it was still good, and it was so Jeff. So one of the things that Jeff said in his acceptance speech was that the role and the importance of the FCM cannot be overstated. He emotionally related to us that he could not believe that a country boy from Colchester County, Nova Scotia, could make a difference on the national stage for communities across Canada. However, a motion from Colchester County seeking federal support to municipalities for active transportation resulted in the federal government announcing a $4 million active transportation fund over 4 years starting in 2021. This fund responds to FCM's advocacy for expansion of walking and cycling infrastructure that have been vital for the modal shift in support of climate targets. The FCM right now has lobbied for $1.2 billion, and we see that on an annual basis on top of the money that we receive for what used to be called gas tax. Now, gas tax was put in place during the Harper government days, and then during the Trudeau government, it has been solidified as an annual contribution, and last year we saw some increases in it. However, this money is currently at risk, and Councillor Huntley had described what we were basically told. The other thing as well, and I know I've said this to each and every one of you before, in Canada, municipalities get less than 7 cents of every tax dollar collected in Canada. And with that 7 cents, we own, operate, and repair almost 80% of the infrastructure in this country. So we need that money, and we need it desperately. Thursday morning, our wake-up call in Calgary was our phones jumping on our side tables because there was an alert that they had a major water main break. A 52-inch pipe basically collapsed, and for areas north of that pipe there was absolutely no water, and they were telling us to avoid water. So this is 6:30 in the morning. Now, I had woke up because I was still on Nova Scotia time, And I was kind of lazing around thinking, you know, I should get up and have a shower. And then 6:30, they're telling me I can't use any water. And so I was a little upset with myself for not having gotten up. But the mayor of Calgary, when she stood up and gave her acceptance or her speech, she talked about how this was probably the best week and the best conference to have in town when something like this happens, because all 3,100 of us understood exactly what her and her staff were going through at that moment with a water emergency. And so it was quite incredible. So I'll go back to the power of the FCM and all of our voices from coast to coast to coast. This year, Nova Scotia only elected one member to the board of directors due to a candidate not submitting their name for re-election as a result of hateful Facebook posts by individuals who knew little or nothing about the work or the commitment of this organization. And it's our hardworking board of directors. These folks who volunteer their time, I don't think we can actually get our arms wrapped around how much work they actually do on our behalf, but I'm going to tell you that the money is there. And for anybody looking to see how much money and how much commitment, if you just Google FCM and go and have a look at the Green Municipal Fund and see how much money that we can access as municipalities for given projects in green municipalities. So the need for elected officials who are committed to making our communities and our country a better place to live never goes unwarranted. So thank you very much for that. So we had correspondence this week. Some of it went into in camera due to the matter with which it discussed. However, we did have one piece of correspondence with regards to an issue on our trails that was resolved after the right people were solicited. So the floor is now open for public comment. Citizens are invited to make comment to council on matters currently before the council. And I would ask you that you please state your name, and I'll call it your round address, and your comments are limited to 3 minutes.
Good evening, Council. My name is Sharon Kehoe, and I live in Kentville. So I'm looking at all of you here, and the majority of you have been on council for 8 years. The ones that haven't have been there. You're on the last part of your 4th year. So I would think that you'd have a bit of a good understanding of at least the basics of Robert's Rules of Order. My understanding and my knowledge of Robert's Rules of Order is quite limited. But when you move to put a motion on the floor, that's what you're doing. You're putting a motion on the floor. How you speak to it is however you want to speak to it, whether it's positive or it's negative. You don't get to have to speak positively to it simply because you move to have it there. The reason why you have such a rule like that is because in Robert's Rules of Order, you are not allowed to put a negative motion on the floor. So in this instance, Councillor Sabian would not have been able to say, I moved to take the budget that's been presented and thrown in the garbage. He has to put it on the floor. But you don't get to tell him that you can't do it. And when you do have the chair say that, no, you can't, then the rest of you have a responsibility to be able to stand up and say, point of order, that's not accurate. So when you get guests from the public that are actually saying, wait a minute, then no, that shouldn't be allowed. Now you're paying a lawyer to sit here, and all of the rest of you know that. So I don't know why that happens and why you all just allow it to happen, but you really should get your act together when it comes to that. Thank you very much.
Excuse me, madam. Robert's Rules 4325, refraining from speaking against one's own motion. In debate, the maker of a motion, while he can vote against it, is not allowed to speak against his own motion. He need not speak at all if he does not feel he is obliged to take a favorable position.
That's when he first starts, because he's the first one to speak of the motion. Not after. You can change. What you're basically saying is he would not be able to change it.
Madam, I am not saying anything. I have just read to you Robert's rules. Thank you.
I defer to the solicitor on that one. My comment It is on your motion for the sanitary sewer deficit. Your intent of your motion was quite clear, but you have the word deficit in it 2 times, so that won't work. You had the word operating reserve deficit in it. The operating reserve is not in deficit. The motion will have to be reworded.
Thank you.
My name is Ron Cousins. I've read what you've been saying on your website. You're doing everything you can to make me look bad and my land look smaller than it is. Wayne Gibbons told me when he was town planner, my land that the town wanted to take from me for the road was 2¼ acres, including the part he said that was cut off that would be no good to me. And Director Bell told me the same road the town wanted was 1.5 acres, and he said in his own words, almost 2 acres, in his own words. There was no piece cut off. Now you put on the town website that my land you want to take from me is only 1.1 acres. It's the same piece of land. My land is not shrinking, but your figures are. People read your website and they think I've been lying. And my land you're trying to take from me is smaller than I said it is. You have also been saying there is misinformation being told, being said. The only misinformation is coming from the town, not me. Thank you.
So I can speak to the land size, and it was 1.5 acres, including the residual piece. When I met with Ron and Gary, the question was, can we maintain the residual piece, which is about 0.4 of an acre. I spoke to Mr. Cousins about a month ago, and I indicated that I did find out that yes, the 0.4 of an acre residual, as you had requested, could stay with you. That is the land size. It is.
Get back to me though, you didn't tell me.
I did, you phoned me. I spoke to you on the phone.
No, you never told me. You said you'd get back to me, you never did.
Mr. Cousins, I won't get into a debate here. You phoned me, you had a question around stormwater ponds. I answered that question, and I also confirmed to you on the phone that the 0.4 acres could reside with you.
Did you see that?
Ladies and gentlemen of Town Council, my name is Robert McFadden, resident of Kentville. I'm here to discuss the expropriation of Ron Cousins' land, but before discussing that, I'd like to address concerning observation from the recent Town Council meeting I attended. During the local citizens' comments, I noticed one of the council members visibly disengaged, focusing on their laptop and deciding to scroll shortly after the speech began. The lack of attentiveness concerns me, especially near an upcoming town election. Public trust in our council is crucial, particularly during times of significant decision-making. As representatives entrusted to serve the community, it is vital that our elected officials listen carefully and engage thoughtfully with community comments and concerns. When a council member visibly disconnects during the public disclosure, it sends a message that the public input may not be valued as it should be. Now, turning to the issue at hand, when I want to express my deep concern about the proposed development that would impact an Acadian old forest growth, on Ron Cousins' land. As a concerned citizen deeply invested in the community's future, I urge each of you to carefully consider the implications of this decision. The Acadian old-growth forest is not just a piece of land, it represents a vital part of our nature's heritage. It supports a local wildlife, provides essential ecological benefits, and enhances the beauty of our surroundings. The potential expropriation of the land for the development raises serious questions about the commitment to environmental stewardship and sustainable urban planning. I encourage the council to explore alternative solutions that preserve the integrity of the Acadian old-growth forest while respecting private property rights. Let's ensure that any development aligns with our community's values of sustainability and conservation, and keeping Kentville a breath of fresh air. Thanks for your attention.
Gary Randall, Kentville once again. Is this a proper forum that I can present a petition to the town of Kentville, sign? It's okay?
We don't typically take petitions through this means. However, if you brought it into the CAO's office, it
Yes.
would go on the next council agenda. Right now, it just sits in limbo. So it would be better if you brought it into the CAO's office for attention on the next council meeting, CAC.
Okay, so, yeah, it's a 500-person petition from everybody everybody we approached in the town of Kentville, right? Plus another 500 from people
Okay.
online, so I'll get it in next week.
Okay.
I'll back the CAO in the sense that we did talk about keeping that piece of land. I've never heard back. If you had a discussion with Ron, that's fine. I can't break any ice here on that one, but I know we did talk about it, and I never heard back. And usually Ron and I discuss everything once it happens, right? I'd ask you, Mayor, if I can, through to the CAO, he produced a paper for us about an alternate route. There's some discussion with Ron tonight about the 1.1 now. It's dwindled down to that of Ron's land. But on that paper, there's two different routes, and I think I passed it out to all the council members the first time we ever discovered there was this alternate route. Anyway, on that alternate route, I think if you look at it, some of the land that's included in the alternate route, the second route that we've discovered, is actually land I would suggest the town already own. It may be equal to 0.8 acres. And if you can take a look at that and confirm, that would dwindle down the additional land that you might have to buy for an alternate route to less than 3 acres. So if we're dwindling down, that might be something that you want to consider too. I think it's actually it's 0.83 acres less. So land that's already, I think, owned by the town because the water line runs across that land already. The road runs across that land already. So that's part of the alternate route design. And it's all shaded in, and we've measured that off and had an engineering company can confirm that. But if you can take a look at that and bring it back to us, we'd appreciate it, maybe at the meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
John Andrew, I live in Kentville. Thank you all. I know budget time is a lot of work, and it's extra work, and I know that's what you're here for, but it's still important. I was of the impression, and I just, my thought or observation is that we need to find a better way to communicate more broadly what this is about. And I know that the margins that we're talking about, because I'm not going to start naming what they are. I know there are things I would call extraneous that could be cut, but they do represent very small amounts of money ultimately. However, I am concerned when we realized that our investments, it seemed like it was a surprise that our investments were kind of in bad shape, and now we're trying to remedy that. So if property valuation hadn't changed as it did, and I think it was mentioned perhaps by Councillor Zabian, would we suddenly have received 10% tax increases? I mean, that's, and I'm not asking, Madam Chair, I'm not asking, I'm just saying that's deeply concerning. And that's the kind of conversation that I'm hearing as Joe citizen, who people think might have some sense of what's going on. And I can't get my head around that we, with proper oversight, fell behind in our investments and got ourselves in a place where we could have really done serious damage to households by throwing, you know, year after year, 10% increases perhaps. And I just find that a hard thing to scoff at. I'm in a low income family, low to mid income family, and we didn't appeal. And we didn't appeal because we care about our town. And it was actually a morning breakfast conversation. Obviously, the town needs this, and we're not going to do that. And so it was, for me, I was public with some things, and I've tried for most of the last 4 years to not be public. But when you have that kind of increase on the people of Kentville, and then you add another new tax onto that, it really isn't feeling good out there. It's really not boding well for this group of people who I know are good people and are working hard to try to do the best they can. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm John Burka. I'm putting on my hat, sorry, for the Blomidon Naturalists. And I spoke to the last council meeting. And thank you very much for listening to me. And I understand you have received 2 letters from the Blomidon Naturalists a year ago. And again this month. I have only received acknowledgement that the letter has been received. And I don't know what has happened to it in the meantime. To the correspondence with regards to Ron Cousins' property. The situation with, I thank the gentleman very much for his comments about protecting nature, and for you for voting for the Chain Lakes letter to support that in Kings County. This is not much of a different situation than the Chain Lakes. It is protecting trees, not in a distant part of Kings County, is protecting them here in Kentville. I went up to the site of Ron's property, the part that is going to be expropriated. They are beautiful 100 plus to 200-year-old trees. They're just magnificent stand of Acadian forest. And they should be protected. And the town of Kentville years ago, I was talking to engineer Larry Honey, who was mayor at the time, and he said that the road does not have to be go through Ron's land. It already had been plumbed out to go around it. And why not go with the original plans for the road and save those beautiful trees? So I hope this decision can be made soon. It's going on and on. It's been a year now since, and I have no idea when you're going to make a decision. But we hope that you will resolve it soon. Like you did very quickly with the Chain Lakes. We hope you resolve it, this one just as quickly. Thank you.
Hi, Mike McLean, West Main Street, Kentville. Just some of the comments I was going to make about the land, Ron Cousins' lands have already been made, but to reiterate, it's more than just stormwater management. It is an ecosystem up there, and I appreciate the comments that were made earlier. What I'd ask council to consider, I'm not sure when the decision point's coming, and there's likely an incremental cost to a larger piece of land, but I don't know the values. I'd suggest that the value of an old growth forest, if properly assessed, could be higher than the larger piece that you're taking, depending on what's happening with the market. That incremental cost of buying more land to avoid the old growth could be considered over the lifespan of the roadway. It may be cheaper today to take Ron's land over the long term, which the road would stay for decades, if not 100 or so years. So that incremental cost isn't today, it's spread over the full life of the road. You have a letter of support to have a protected area. Somebody's already commented on that. Be ironic if you're supporting protected area elsewhere, you have one in town. Very few towns have an old-growth forest, if any. You can't get an old-growth forest once you take it away. I suggest that the value of keeping it for all the environmental, greenhouse gas, the value of the land that's gonna be sold around the development, which may be enhanced because there's an old-growth forest, more than offsets the annualized cost over, say, 100 years. And I don't say that lightly, but I think that should be considered. Thanks.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Fiona Van Wolkenberg, and I live in Kentville. So about 10 days ago, I created an online petition on behalf of Ron Cousins, hoping to help get the word out and gain some signatures from those that the paper petition might not reach. So far, on the online petition, we have well over 500 signatures, and I know Ron's collected a little over 500 as well on his paper petition. Just from those that I've spoken to on the issue and from the comments made on the online petition, the resounding opinion is that the town needs to find an alternate route. Ron has continuously made it very clear that he will not sell or give his land away under any circumstance. The town's website, on their recently added FAQ section, states that the town is looking to acquire Ron's land. How do you acquire something that was neither given to you or sold to you? Lastly, on an unrelated note, I just wanted to say that, well, that after witnessing some pretty bizarre and unprovoked behavior from a sitting councillor last week, I think it might be a good idea to have a code of conduct refresher. It was bizarre. Anyways, thank you.
All right, thank you very much for that. And the council has items which must be conducted in a closed session. We require a motion to go into the closed session to discuss the agenda items. We will not be returning to YouTube for the completion of the meeting or adjournment. And the motion is to move into a closed session to discuss the agenda items. Councillor Zabian, thank you. And a second? Councillor Huntley, thank you. It has been moved and seconded that council move into a closed session. The question is on adoption of the motion to move into a closed session. All those in favor? Those opposed? The motion is carried, and the time is 6:46.